Good evening, everyone. My name is Casey Arnold, and I serve as Vice President of Alumni Services for the University of Illinois Alumni Association. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and we're looking forward to another great session of our ongoing Alumni College Speaker Series. But before I introduce our speaker for this evening, I want to take a moment to talk about some exciting things happening at your Alumni Association. If you may have heard, we are celebrating our sesquicentennial anniversary this year. We are honoring this milestone in a number of different ways, and one of those ways is putting together a time capsule to be open in 50 years. We've reached out to alumni to ask for your ideas and thoughts on memorabilia to include in the time capsule, and we'll soon be narrowing down the list of suggestions so that we can have all of you vote on which items to include. Please keep an eye on your inbox so that you can participate in the upcoming vote and learn more about future sesquicentennial themed opportunities. We also continue to see a lot of excitement surrounding our annual paid membership program and the premier benefits that our members receive. If you haven't done so already, I would encourage you to visit uiaa.org/membership to learn more about all of our great benefits and to sign up today. For those of you on the webinar who may be life members of the association, please know that you have access to all of our current benefits at no additional cost. We're so grateful for the investment that you made with your life membership, and we will honor that investment by offering you this current suite of benefits. We also have some great opportunities for all alumni to engage with us, even if you haven't signed up for your membership yet. You can visit alumnilink.illinois.edu to join Alumni Link, our online networking and mentorship program where you can connect with thousands of fellow alumni from around the world. You can also join our online book club by visiting pbc.guru/uillinois. Joining the book club is free and provides our alumni with an opportunity to connect with one another over shared interests in literature, history, and professional development. Finally, before I introduce our speaker this evening, I would like to remind everyone to please submit questions during the presentation via the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. We will have time left at the end for questions, and we will get through as many as possible in the time allotted. Now, let's get to why we've all logged on tonight, which is to hear from another esteemed member of our Illinois faculty. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker for this evening, Wendy A. Rogers. Professor Rogers is the Shahid and Ann Carlson Kahn Professor of Applied Health Sciences at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Her primary appointment is in the Department of Kinesiology and Community Health, and she also has an appointment in educational psychology and is an affiliate of the Beckman Institute, the Illinois Informatics Institute, the Center for Social and Behavioral Science, the Discovery Partners Institute, the Women in Gender and Global Perspectives Program, and the Coordinated Science Lab Robotics Group. She received her BA from the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth and her MS and PhD from the Georgia Institute of Technology. She is a certified human factors professional, and her research interests include design for aging, technology acceptance, human automation interaction, aging in place, human-robot interaction, aging with disabilities, cognitive aging, skill acquisition, and training. She is the director of the McKechnie Family Life Home, director of the Health Technology Education Program, program director of collaborations in health, aging, research, and technology, and director of the Human Factors and Aging Laboratory. With that, it is my great pleasure to turn the program over to Professor Rogers.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It's my honor to be here tonight and speak with you about some of the research that we're doing. The title of my presentation is Living in Interactive Future Environments. You'll understand why I picked that name in a little while. Supporting Successful Aging. When we think about designing for older adults, we like to personalize it. And so what you're seeing on the screen here is members of the lab family and members of my own family. So starting on the far right, you see my mom, my dad, my sister, and then my husband and I. You'll be pleased to know that my husband is also a proud University of Illinois alum from the Department of Psychology. As Casey mentioned, I do a number of different things, and so what I would like to do is just tell you a little bit about the various activities that I'm engaged in, and then mostly focus on the research and give you a sampling of some of the research projects that we're working on. I want to start by just telling you very briefly about the Health Technology Education Program. Our tagline is Designing for Health. We recognize the importance of health technology, and we want to educate students at all levels about this new area that we should be conversant in. And so one of the things we've done is we've added a new course that is actually a general education course in health technology that students from all over campus can take. We've also added an undergraduate certificate and a health technology interdisciplinary minor. These, as well as our master's degree, are in collaboration with the Granger College of Engineering. We're also starting a professional education program that will be online modules for professionals who just want to learn a little bit about different areas of health technology. But our crown jewel is the Master of Science in Health Technology. This is a new program. We're currently with our 4th cohort. First program of its kind in the world. And the idea here is to focus on training the next generation of applied health technology professionals to support the design of technology that enables better health, better well-being. It's a 1-year intensive course with a capstone project experience. And the capstone allows our students to work with community partners, industry partners, or faculty members. So I encourage you to help us spread the word. We're a new program, we're growing. But one of the things I want to show you is the success of our alum. So students who have graduated from our master's program are working in a wide variety of places. So some industry places, some government places, university, and a number of different labels. So human factors engineers, UI, UX, that means user interface or user experience. And so I'm really excited about this program because I personally think we need people out in the world who know something about how health technology should be designed with the users in mind. The second thing I'd like to share is the CHART program. So this was started when I came to start it. So CHART is a research theme in the College of Applied Health Sciences. And the goal here is to think about supporting successful aging through research, technology development, education, as I was just describing, but also, and I think this is an area where sometimes we don't do enough, thinking about how our research can guide policy and decision-making, and then most importantly is translating these efforts to positively affect the lives of older adults. It's not enough to design wonderful things here on campus if they're not getting out there and improving the lives of older adults. Now, why is this so important? So this is a graphic of the percentage of the population over age 65 in 2015, and then projected what it's going to look like in 2050. And the darker colors show higher percentages of people over the age of 65. And what I like to tell students from any discipline on campus is it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're in engineering, if you're in business, if you're in social work, you're going to be working with older adults, and you need to understand what their needs are. If we look specifically at the state of Illinois, this graphic we borrowed from the state plan on aging that was put out by the Illinois Department on Aging. We're just seeing this increase in the number of people here. This is over the age of 60. So sometimes older adult is 60 plus, sometimes it's 65 plus. But if we look at this population, by 2030, we're talking about nearly 3.7 million people in the state of Illinois who are going to be older adults. And so what we do in CHART, we have a number of different activities that are engaging faculty members in research, providing support for events, engaging with the community. We're part of, there's an Age-Friendly Cities initiative, but we started a couple of years ago also an Age-Friendly University. We provide support for participant recruitment, and we also have visiting scholars. So just 2 days ago, I had a visiting scholar arrive from China who will be with us for 1 year. And then in the spring, we have a student coming from Canada who will spend the spring semester with us. So we have a steering committee made up of faculty, but also community members. And we were very pleased to host Paula Basta, the director of the Illinois Department on Aging. We work closely with them. So CHART faculty are part of 3 federally funded research centers. The first one, and I have lots of acronyms, so be prepared. The first one is called CREATE, which is the Center for Research and Education on Aging and Technology Enhancement. This has been funded since 1999 by the National Institute on Aging. And the goal of CREATE is to think about all of us. As we're growing older, what are our needs and how might technology support those needs? The second center is called TechSage, which is technologies to support aging among people with long-term disabilities. And this is funded by an organization called NIDLR, which is also a federal agency, the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research. And this was started in 2013. Our focus here is on people who are aging with either perceptual disabilities, such as vision loss or hearing loss, or mobility disabilities. The third center is called ENHANCE, which is enhancing neurocognitive health, abilities, networks, and community engagement, also funded by NIDLR. And the ENHANCE Center is the newest of the three. Here the focus is on people who are aging with cognitive impairment. And that might be mild cognitive impairment, perhaps leading to Alzheimer's disease. It might be somebody who's had a traumatic brain injury, or someone who's had a stroke and has some lingering cognitive challenges. So through these three research centers, all funded by the US government, we're really covering the range of older adults and what their needs might be. My own lab is called the Human Factors in Aging Laboratory, and this is the research that I'll be presenting today. And here we think about, what do we mean by successful aging? So it's functioning effectively, but also maintaining personal autonomy, retaining, but also enhancing our abilities, managing health conditions, but also thinking about wellness, remaining socially engaged, and participating in one's community. And so to do that, we think about what are the abilities, the limitations, the needs, the preferences of older adults? What do they want? How can we help them? What do they need and what do they want? And most importantly, we do our work with older adults. So they're engaged actively in our research as participants, as consultants, as subject matter experts, with an eye towards developing both usable and useful products and systems. Effective training and instruction. Personally, I think a lot of technology that's developed might be very highly functional, but nobody is being taught well enough how to use it, so they're not able to take advantage of it. And that, as a result, doesn't lead to enough deployment. How do we design the technology, provide instructional support so that we can distribute it on a broad scale? So what I'd like to do is give a sampling of several different topic areas that we're focusing on. And so the first one is health self-management. And this comes from a paper that I wrote with two colleagues in educational psychology here at the University of Illinois, where we were thinking about, well, if we're supporting health self-care, we need to understand, where is the person in this stage of illness? So have they just been diagnosed with something? Have they had a chronic condition for a while that they're trying to manage? And are they trying to sustain that self-care over time? And if we think about this framework, it allows us to understand, well, what might the technology need to do? What are the communication goals of the technology? What are the patient needs? And then what are the technology requirements? So if you think about somebody who's just been diagnosed, they need to understand, well, what is this disease that I have? So they need to acquire some declarative knowledge. Maybe they need to manage their affect and their emotions because it's stressful to have this disease. And maybe we need something that will persuade them to take care of themselves. What do I need to do? And so the technology may need to support helping people understand their illness, maybe target some disease misconceptions, and encourage self-care. So I won't go through the entire framework here. I just wanted to show you that having these kinds of frameworks help us to understand holistically what the person's needs are and use that to guide the design of the technology. So if we think about apps, for example, for health self-management, I did a review with some of my students a few years ago looking at mobile health apps. And the first thing we did, and this is a few years ago already, is we did a search, and there were well over 1,000 apps on the App Store, and I'm sure there are many more now, that could be classified as supporting health self-management. Hundreds of them that support blood pressure or diabetes or exercise and so on. So they're out there, but are they useful and usable by older adults? And so what we did was we evaluated some of the most commonly downloaded apps, one that was a medication reminder and another one that was supposed to support congestive heart failure management. We did some standard, these are standard human factors evaluation approaches. I won't go into them in detail, but the idea was to look at these apps that are out there and say, are they useful and are they usable by older adults? And we look at each aspect of trying to use the device. So navigation, for example, are there issues with navigation? We looked at user comments for both systems. Data entry, if they have to enter data, is that easy? What happens if they make a mistake? And then you're getting all of this data. What kind of data visualizations are being provided so that I can understand the relationship, for example, between my exercise activities and my sleep, for instance, or my exercise and my pain? How are the data that are being collected by these apps presented to me? And what we found is there are a lot of challenges in using these apps. And so our paper was providing guidelines that should be followed for designing healthcare apps for older adults. What we're doing is we're trying to take these guidelines ourselves, and we're using them to design a system we call MedsREM, which is medication education, decision support, reminding, and monitoring. It's designed for older adults who have hypertension, and it's an app with a companion website. And so if you look at the far left of the screen, you see information about the medication that you're taking, and I'm supposed to take it now whenever my meeting was scheduled, and it gives me a cue and a reminder to act now. And when I press that button, I can say, I'm going to take my medication right now. That's the reminder part. There's also an educational component where I can read more about my particular medication. How does it work? What are the side effects? There's a decision support component if I forget. So I'm in a meeting right now, so I can't take my medication, and maybe I don't remember for 3 more hours. I'll go to the system and it'll say, you know what? Too much time has passed. You should wait and take the next dose at your regular time. Or it might say, oh, for that medication, it's fine to take it a little bit late. So we're providing decision support for people. We're also trying to dispel common misconceptions. That's also part of the educational component. There are different bits of information provided both on the app and on the website. And then a key thing is the reminding, but then also the monitoring. How am I doing? Am I remembering to take my medications? Do I tend to miss always on Saturday, for example? And so we have a daily summary, a weekly summary, and then a monthly calendar that I can just look quickly at and see, you know, all those days that are green, I took my medications correctly. The days that are yellow, I missed some. And the days that are red, I didn't do it correctly at all. So right now we're in the middle of a randomized controlled trial to assess the effectiveness of using this system for older adults. And this is funded by the National Institute of Nursing Research, also a part of NIH, National Institutes of Health. And we're exploring it for older adults in general, as well as older adults who have mild cognitive impairment. I'd like to talk a little bit about social engagement. We've been hearing a lot about the importance of loneliness. So this picture shows a report that very recently came out from the US Surgeon General about what he labeled our epidemic of loneliness and isolation. And this report isn't only focused on older adults, it's more generally thinking about this issue. I'm going to orient us to why this is so important to older adults in particular. A couple of my students and I did a review a few years ago looking at, well, why is social engagement so important for older adults? And there's a large literature showing that older adults who have more social engagement have lower levels of hypertension. They're less likely to develop dementia. They have better mental health, better psychological well-being, and there's even some correlations with reduced mortality rates. And so the data are quite striking, and it is these data that are, represented in part in the Surgeon General's report. But I think one thing that I want to emphasize is that loneliness and social isolation are not necessarily the same thing. And so one of our studies that we conducted, we recruited people who we thought were at risk for social isolation. And we defined that as they were older adults over the age of 65. They lived alone in the community. They didn't really use a computer or the internet very much. They weren't working or volunteering, and they engaged at a senior center or something equivalent fewer than 10 hours a week. So these people are at risk for social isolation. The question is, are they lonely? And so here are the data that show the distribution of loneliness. So this is a standard measure of loneliness that's often used. And what I just want to point out is there's a distribution of loneliness. All of these people live alone and don't have a lot of people in their network, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily lonely. And so when we're thinking about how do we support people, we want to be able to support the people who are lonely and need some social engagement. And the reason that's important is taking these data. I'll just show you a couple of statistical representations of predicting depression. So in this case, we're predicting depression, and what we see is that social support and social isolation predict loneliness, and then loneliness and social isolation together predict depression. That's why it's important, right? We look at this and we say, well, where can we intervene? Can we reduce social isolation? Can we reduce loneliness? Can we provide more social support? That might reduce depression. Likewise, we did the same thing with health. And what we see is that loneliness has a direct effect on health self-ratings. And so I'm just showing you a couple of tidbits to illustrate the importance of this issue. The other thing I want to show is another framework. And so when I think about design of technology, I really like to think holistically. What am I trying to accomplish with this technology? And so this paper was done with my colleague Raksha Mudar here at the University of Illinois. And the idea was to think about, if we're going to provide people with some type of social engagement, what do we want to do? What is it that we're trying to support? And so we need to think about the type of activity. Are we trying to give them enjoyment, relaxation, or are we trying to give them a sense of belonging, or are we trying to stimulate them in terms of their cognitive engagement and so on? What the content needs to be, what the format needs to be, all of the stuff at the top is the activity itself, the engagement. The bottom part is, well, who's engaging with whom? Are we trying to connect acquaintances, co-workers, neighbors, family, friends, etc.? And what's the nature of that interaction that we're trying to develop? And so just using this big picture helps me think about my research. And so I'll tell you about a couple of projects we're doing. One is using digital assistants to provide support for both social and environmental control. And this study was specifically for older adults with mobility disabilities. And what we did was, this was conducted during the pandemic. We mailed them something we called digital assistants in a box. So it was literally a box that had an Amazon Alexa, a smart plug, a smart light bulb, but most importantly, instructions for how to use everything. And in addition to the written paper instructions that were in the box, we also made short videos that they could watch to learn how to use this technology. They're at home alone. Maybe they have family members there, but they didn't currently have this kind of technology. How could they use it to help them? All 25 of the participants that were in this study successfully learned to use the technology on their own at home. And then after they had been using it for 5 weeks, our pre-post measure revealed that their self-reported loneliness had actually decreased. I'll share one brief anecdote. I met one of our participants at an event a couple of weeks ago, and he's a University of Illinois alum. And we were at a homecoming event, and he shared with me that because of this system that he was using, he was able to get assistance for his wife who had a stroke much more quickly because he couldn't access his telephone, but he was able to say, Alexa, please call my son. And his son and his daughter were able to get help to them right away. And so that's just one example of how these kinds of technologies can be integrated to support people in their homes. But the critical piece is all the user guides and making sure you're providing them with the instructional support that they need. Another project we're doing is using video chat to reduce social isolation and loneliness by connecting people with others who might share interests with you. They may not be people you know, but they might have shared interests. And so we're partnering with a company called OneClick that has designed this social chat platform. We worked with them to make it very easy to use for older adults with and without cognitive impairment. And we developed these events around 5 different content areas. People could sign up an event, they could sign up for an event, watch a program, and then have conversation with others who had also signed up for the event. So it wasn't with people they know, but it was people who had shared interests. And so in this study, we are in the midst of analyzing the data right now. We conducted randomized controlled trials with 2 groups. One group was older adults who varied in their level of cognitive ability. The second group is people who are caregivers of individuals who have Alzheimer's disease. And so they're providing the care, and most of their energy is in the care provision. They have very little time for themselves. They could sign up for our program and just take 30 minutes to just do something that they enjoy. And they just love the program. So we're in the process of analyzing those data right now. The third area that we're focused on, again, with respect related to social engagement, is using virtual reality, but to support maybe cognitive activities or physical activities as well as social engagement. This is a new study that we're just getting started with. And right now what we're doing is exploring, well, what are some virtual reality apps that are out there that might support these different types of engagement? So if you look on the upper right, you see an app developed by one of our colleagues which is gardening. So you can go for a stroll in the garden, you can actually do planting. So it's a way to simulate being outdoors and doing something. The middle one is a painting virtual reality where you can show off your creative juices. And then the one at the bottom is a social engagement type of virtual reality app. So right now we're just developing a system with the idea to put these kinds of applications in the homes of older adults, again, who may be at risk for social isolation and loneliness. The last topic I would like to cover is about robotics. So this is a growing area on campus that we've been developing and focusing on the potential of robots to support anybody, but the work I'm going to talk about is to support older adults. And the work that we're doing is being conducted in the McKechnie Family Life Home. If you haven't been there yet, I encourage you to contact me and come by for a tour. This is where the title of my presentation comes from. So LIFE stands for Living in Interactive Future Environments. And the Life Home is a simulated home environment. You can see some of the spaces pictured here. And the idea is to use this as a test bed. So we're developing technologies, or we're developing instructional support for technologies that already exist, and we can test them out in this space. We can bring people to the home and test out the technology. So I have a very short video that I want to show you.
Welcome to the McKechnie Family Robot Tour. The robots and I are so excited to meet you. My name is Misty, and I am a social robot. I can provide support with social engagements, schedule management, and reminders. I can also help with controlling your smart home devices. I am easy to work with. Students can easily program me to bring their creative ideas to life. Here comes my best friend Stretch. Stretch is a mobile manipulator that can carry out multiple tasks to support people with varying abilities and limitations. For example, to pick and deliver items. As you can see, he loves picking up this fish oil bottle. Omni is a telepresence robot used for remote communication and can support with remote wellness checks and safety monitoring. As you can see, my friend Keaton is on the video call with the newest to the family, Paro. Paro is a therapeutic robot with a calming nature. Paro is comforting and can provide with social and emotional support. Isn't she cute? And finally, here is Moxie to introduce herself.
Well, as a robot, my job is to learn about humans like you. My name is Moxie and I come from the Global Robotics Laboratory. My purpose is to be a friendly companion and ambassador.
I want to say I've really enjoyed our time together. Thank you very, very much for having me around. Maybe someday, when robots are way more advanced than today, and everyone has them in their homes, you can tell yours that I said hello. I wonder if they'll be able to do this.
Welcome to the
It doesn't matter how many times I've seen that video, they still make me smile, some of these robots. So I'm going to share some of the research projects that we're doing. I just wanted you to see that. You can see the space of the McKechnie Family Life Home and see some of the robots in action. So this story did a wonderful piece. Hopefully many of you received this through the Alumni magazine about some of the research that we're doing. And one of the projects, you saw a short video of Stretch. So this is another project that's funded by the National Institute on Aging, and we're partnering with the company called Hello Robot that is the designer of this particular robot. I'm going to show this video in the background while I'm talking. And so one of the things that's unique about this robot is it's a relatively low mass. It's not very heavy and it can move about the space. So you'll see it in a moment delivering a bottle of water to me as I'm sitting on the couch in the Life Home. So one of the things that's interesting is no matter how many people we've assessed interacting with Stretch, when Stretch hands them something, it's their inclination to say thank you, as I just did. What's interesting about this robot is it only weighs 51 pounds. And I've put a robot picture in the upper corner that we started doing work with that weighs 500 pounds. And so what we're seeing is the huge advancements in technology over the past 8 to 10 years, where we can take these very heavy, very expensive robots and design them in a way that might make them more accessible into the home environment. And so we've been exploring at the Life Home capabilities of Stretch. What can this robot do to support people in the home environment? So delivering items, turning on a light switch, reaching to an area that somebody maybe in a wheelchair doesn't have the access to, or opening cabinets. But I mentioned as I started that one of the key things we do is we design with older adults. So we're also bringing older adults into the Life Home to give them the opportunity to interact with the Stretch robot and give us their feedback and their ideas about how this robot might be useful. One concern we had is that people might be a little intimidated by the robot, not quite know what to expect. And so what we first do is we show them a video on the television in the Life Home introducing the Stretch robot to them. Then we demonstrate the Stretch robot at a distance. So the participant is sitting there and one of our undergraduates is demonstrating how the Stretch robot is helping her put the groceries away or put things away in the kitchen. And then we provide them with the opportunity to interact directly with the robot. So Stretch actually delivers something to them, and we get a sense of their willingness to interact with this kind of a robot, but most importantly, we get their ideas. And so in one set of participants, we're working with people who have cognitive impairments and exploring, what do you think the Stretch robot might be useful for you in your home? And they come up with ideas like safety monitoring if I've forgotten to turn off the range, medication management, so bringing me my medications or helping me remember what I need to do, but also social engagement, Having a family member who lives elsewhere be able to come in and check on them, watching videos or playing games on the tablet. I'll show you, actually it's in the next picture. You can see how Stretch can hold a tablet and make that tablet visible to you. So our other group of participants is older adults who have mobility impairments. And what are some of the things that they think Stretch might be useful for? Delivering items such as a medication, a water bottle. I showed how it might be useful for reaching for items or picking up items from the floor. That's often a fall risk for older adults, but also some cognitive things like reminders and social engagements, and having family members be able to check in on them. Also, some individuals with mobility impairments, especially upper body mobility impairments, mentioned dressing, assistance with dressing. And then the last item, I think, is something maybe all of us would like assistance with: house cleaning, making the bed, sweeping, and so on. We're also partnering with Clark Lindsay Village, which is a life plan community near campus, to explore how might Stretch be useful in their community. And so in personal apartments, but also perhaps in the greenhouse home, which is a new method of providing memory care to individuals in a more home-like, community-like environment. And so we've been starting to explore with staff members. We're going to be doing more of that this upcoming month, what they see as the benefit for residents, perhaps increasing their autonomy, enhancing their connection to a remote caregiver, enabling them to maintain their privacy, providing assistance with everyday activities, retrieving items for them, or also perhaps providing safety support. One thing we know that occurs sometimes is individuals with cognitive impairment or memory challenges, they may forget literally that they need to use a walker, and they get up and they start walking. And so Stretch could have the walker nearby and deliver it to them, for example. But also thinking about what are the benefits to the staff if you have this kind of a robot. Maybe enabling them to remotely connect with residents or perform a wellness check in somebody's apartment, providing them the ability to support multiple residents with a single robot, for example. And then I think this is very important, enabling them to free up some of their time. If the robot is doing some of the tasks, like the cleaning tasks, for example, then they could have more time engaging with the residents in conversation and building a relationship with them. It might also reduce the physical burdens on the staff member and their need to be doing many things all at the same time, or their ability to deliver items to residents. And so we're very excited about working with the staff at Clark Lindsay Village, and we're hoping probably next summer or fall, we'll be putting the Stretch robots over at Clark Lindsay and exploring them in that context. The other thing we've been doing is a participatory design field trial with Stretch embedded in a home. So this is Henry and Jane Evans, and I have another short video, and I'm going to allow Henry to introduce himself to you.
Hello. My name is Henry Evans. I'm mute quadriplegic since 2002. Recently, I have spent 3 summers exploring different ways to use the robot Stretch. To really appreciate what Stretch does for me, first have someone bind you to your bed so the only thing you can move is your head, and let you lie there for a couple of days. Then imagine what it is like to be in this condition for 30 to 40 years. Yeah, it's no picnic. Now imagine that, instead, after 10 years, someone brings you a robot that you can control with a web browser on your computer to scratch your head when and where it itches, feed yourself when you are hungry, and in general travel through and manipulate your environment. Children are really drawn to robots, and Stretch is a good example of that. My granddaughter used to ignore me because I am paralyzed and mute.
Playing with our granddaughter here in our home with Stretch was pretty powerful because our granddaughter looks at Henry as an inanimate object. And there's a sadness in that. And he has shared with me how sad it is.
When we mounted a tablet with my image on Stretch and told her I was controlling Stretch and wanted to play games with her, she started playing with Stretch and talking directly to me. And ever since then she has been more cognizant of me, and has even started hugging me goodbye. For me, the most enjoyable thing to do with Stretch is to freestyle, to identify a new task and then figure out how to do it with Stretch, because Stretch is so adaptable. From giving Jane a rose, to feeding myself small, soft bites of food that I fetch from the kitchen using Stretch, to playing my own hand and card games. Our work with Stretch should give you some idea of how robots have improved my life.
As you can see, Henry and Jane are true participants in the design work that we're doing with the Stretch robot. I'm going to show you a few pictures to allow me to dwell on some of what we're able to do with Henry. So Henry controls the screen, the interface, using a reflective dot on his glasses. So he's able to select a spot on the screen. He's also able to move one thumb, and he can use that for selection. I'm going to show you this video just so you can see him in action. And he's enjoying participating. He's really helps us figure out how Stretch can work for him. And he's doing everything. So he's controlling it right now. And so think about the freedom that it gives him to be able to feed himself. And it doesn't really matter that it's fast, right? I mean, it's safe. We're focusing foremost on safety, but it's also the autonomy that he has. We're also working with an occupational therapist to build things that Stretch might hold that would enable Henry to do things. So we ask him at the beginning of each summer, we've now done this 3 summers in a row, the beginning of the summer, what are some things you want to be able to do? And think about how maddening it would be to have an itch that you can't scratch yourself. And so our occupational therapist built this using a pool noodle to hold a brush that is easy for the robot to grip. And it enables Henry to just go pick up the brush and scratch an itch, you know, seemingly small, but huge for him. He also mentioned in the video the importance of you being able to do intergenerational social engagement. So enabling him to play with his granddaughter and for his granddaughter to think of him as a person who laughs and has fun and is somebody she wants to engage with. And then the third thing that I just want to mention here is that if you're going to have a robot in the home, you also want to think about supporting the other people who live in the home. And so we've explored with Jane how the Stretch robot might assist her. And one example, Jane's always doing a million things around the house. She needs to remember to check her blood pressure and take her blood pressure medication. And so we've incorporated a way for Stretch to deliver her blood pressure cuff to her, remind her to take it, pop up on the screen to enter her blood pressure, and so on. And so thinking about how might a robot like this support everybody in the home. So I really want to emphasize that when we're doing this kind of research, it's the classic example of what is team science. So we have people from the University of Illinois, staff members engaging from Clark Lindsay, the team at Hello Robot, and we are working together across these multiple sites, but we have shared goals and we're having positive outcomes with the work that we're doing. I also want to highlight that on the Illinois team, we have undergraduate students, we have graduate students, we have postdocs. Students are so interested in getting engaged in this research because they see the importance of what we're doing. And that's what I want to show you on this slide in their own words. I finally got to meet them in person. We've worked together for 10 years, and I just met them in person this summer. And Henry has said that robotics in general have had a very large impact on my life, and Stretch is an important link in the evolution of those robotics. Using Stretch was surprisingly easy, showing how adaptable Stretch is. Jane, robots have influenced Henry's life greatly. They gave him a reason to live. That is so powerful. We have to ask ourselves over and over, why robots when a caregiver can do it 10 times faster? I see what it does to my husband mentally when he can do things by himself and not depend on anyone. So I'd like to wrap up by just summarizing what I've tried to show today is how do we design technology to support successful aging? We need to think about advancing foundational knowledge, our understanding of aging and needs and technology. We need to think about, my bias, behavior. Behavioral science needs to be part of the whole life cycle. What is the human role in these human technology interactions? We need to think about the practical applications and how they might improve quality of life. We absolutely need to engage the end users. We're designing with people. We are not those people. We need them to help us design, right? We don't know what their experience is. I can't imagine what Henry's experience is. He's right there with us, engaging in the design. Likewise with Jane, likewise with other older adults who participate in our studies. And then lastly, I started off by telling you about the health technology education program. We need to be developing the next generation workforce to understand these issues and these needs. And so I would like to thank you. This is my lab group. Nothing gets done without the amazing students here at the University of Illinois. And I appreciate your interest, and I've tried my best to save a good bit of time for your questions. So I will stop sharing here, and Casey is going to manage questions for me, I think.
Yes, thanks so much. I learned so many things. I've been taking notes for things to tell my parents, but I want to make sure we have plenty of time to get to other folks' questions. So to start us off, to go back to kind of the beginning of your presentation, you talked right at the start about apps that folks can use. And Robert wanted to know, how do you specifically define apps that are useful to older adults? Like, how is it different than an app that would be useful to a person of any age?
Oh, good point. So I think there are certain things that change with age, such as visual ability or hearing ability. And so older adults might have more difficulty with apps that have very small print, or that overload working memory, or that are too cluttered, or that are difficult to use in terms of their navigation. So there's certain things that might be more difficult for older adults. But in my experience, if we design something that's going to be easy to use by older adults, it'll likely also be easy to use by other people as well. It's just a way for us to target certain needs of older individuals.
Okay. Another question that someone mentioned that you touched on a bit, but they wanted to explore more was, what differences does your research show when you're looking at adults who are in different age groups? So 65 plus, 75 plus, 85 plus, and then secondarily also adults in older adults in rural areas versus urban areas, specifically the kind of loneliness and social engagement component, which might be more difficult for folks living in more remote areas.
Yes, great question. So first, with respect to the different ages, what I think tends to matter more is the individual's experiences and needs, because there's a lot of heterogeneity in older adult groups based on experience. So one 75-year-old is very different from another 75-year-old based on their health conditions, their needs, maybe their experience with technologies. And so it's things like that: healthcare needs, technology experience, willingness and openness to try new technologies. Those tend to be more predictive than the absolute chronological age of an individual. With respect to the rural concerns, absolutely, I think that the remoteness of rural areas might lead to more social isolation for older adults. And that's why we're trying to think about some of the examples that I gave you. They're low cost. I mean, you need to have a computer, but you can also do it on your phone using the one-click video chat system. So you don't have to have a big expensive system to engage in some of these interventions that we know can be very helpful. So we're trying to think about broad accessibility to people in different areas.
Right. We had a follow-up to the first question. Kara wants to know, are you aware of any app design guidelines for older adults that are publicly available? So if a person wanted to develop an app for an older population, where could they go to get advice on that?
Great question. The paper that I referenced, that's exactly what that is. So we have a list of, here's some guidelines that you should follow. I'd be happy to share that. And I think we'll be sharing the video of this and the references in there. But if anybody wants to email me, I could send them the paper.
Great. We can include a note about that. We will, and we got a few questions about this. The recording of this presentation will be available both on our website, UIAA.org, and then also on Alumni link, alumnilink.illinois.edu within the next 10 business days. And then we'll also be sending out a post-event survey and can include some reminders for folks who might want to reach out to Professor Rogers. On a similar sort of logistical note, actually, we got a very straightforward question. Marilyn wants to know, where on campus is the Lifehouse?
Ah, good. It's basically on First and Windsor. It's near Ashton Woods. So it's on the edge of Research Park. It's right on campus, and it's accessible by bus, and we have parking. So those two very critical things to engage people.
And I think we got a question about tours. I think you had mentioned earlier that folks could email you if they wanted to set up a tour.
Yes, or go to our website, which is ahs.lifehome.illinois.edu. In case if you remember what I just said and put it in the chat. And we have virtual tours, so you can watch some of the videos that I've showed, and then you can also just send a note there if you would like to do a tour.
Yeah, we'll make sure to include that link in the post-event email so that folks
Perfect.
have a record of it.
Perfect.
I'm trying to consolidate several questions here. We've gotten a lot of questions about artificial intelligence and folks wanting to know kind of how you're incorporating different pieces of AI. One interesting question, someone made the point that there are often privacy concerns sometimes when it comes to some of these newer technologies. How do you all deal with that when you're putting these robots in people's homes?
Yeah, I think that's something we're really paying close attention to. Privacy is critical, and people need to understand what types of information are they sharing. So, for example, we have found that some older adults are willing to give up a little bit of privacy if it means they can maintain their autonomy and independence. So to me, the key is helping people understand, well, how exactly does that technology work? What is it capturing? Where is it going? I want the individual to have control over their own information, over their own data. So I think the education of how things work is really important, and also building in privacy controls, but also security controls so that your system can't be hacked. And that's some of the work that the engineers do to make sure that they're secure systems. For some of the systems, the information doesn't even have to leave the home. It's all processed internally within the home environment, which helps with the security issues.
Great. Mary wants to know, are you doing any work with any commercially available robot tools like the Amazon Alexa products or any of the robotic vacuum cleaners or anything like that? Or is everything sort of specifically designed for these particular purposes?
Good question. So I think we are using the Amazon Alexa products for things. We're also working with some robots that are available off the shelf. So I showed a short video of Misty robot. That's commercially available, as is the Moxie robot. Both of those are commercially available. And we're exploring how those robots might be used to support social engagement or control of the environment or healthcare activities. So I like to think about using the Life Home for a mixture of what technology is currently available and how can we make it more accessible, as well as what are the future technologies that are being designed by engineers on campus as well as in industry partners. So a little bit of both.
Great. We've gotten a couple of advice-focused questions. So you talked a lot about social isolation and loneliness and things like that. Sometimes as people age, they don't necessarily want to be super social. So if you notice an older person in your life who's maybe suffering from some of those effects, but is disinclined to get out and kind of mingle with other folks, how can you encourage them to do that?
I think it's really, an important question, because one of the things I tried to show with that distribution of loneliness is just because someone is alone doesn't mean they're lonely. They might be perfectly fine and they enjoy being alone. They maybe have worked their whole lives and they've had to interact with people, and maybe they're just prefer to be alone. The challenge is when you feel like it maybe is becoming unhealthy if they're spending too much time alone. And there, the key is to find out what is of interest to them. The video chat study that I described, we tried to develop content that would be interesting to a variety of different people to find like something for everyone. And I think making it easy for them to try it. That's the other key thing, right? Is having a low bar. It's relatively easy to try this. Let me see how it works. I'm not committing to a lot of time. I'm not spending a lot of money. I'm just getting a chance to see if I like it. I think that's also something that's important.
Okay. I think that's great advice. Kind of along the advice track, if you are someone who thinks that you might be aging alone, perhaps you don't have a partner, you don't have children, or you live very far away from those folks, what would you say are kind of some keys to success to set yourself up to age successfully without a large support system?
I think that's a challenging question, is to think about how might you develop a support system that may be a non-traditional support and connecting with people who have shared interests, and thinking about how you might integrate technology into your world to support certain things, like things that become more difficult for you to do as you get older. Can you offload some of that and save your resources, your physical energy, for things that are important to you? And so I think that's a really interesting and difficult question that I will think more about. But I think, you know, exploring maybe outside of your normal comfort zone, just to think about ways to engage more, might be helpful.
And I think just one more question sort of on that advice front. What is the number one piece of advice that you would offer caregivers as they're thinking about loved ones or people that they know that they might be working with as they age?
Don't be afraid to ask for help, I think, and don't try to do it yourself. One of the things I've learned from working with the Illinois Department on Aging is there are a lot of resources available to support people. One challenge is that people often don't know what's out there or how to find it. And so I encourage you to go to the Illinois Department on Aging website. Go to the area agency on aging that serves your community. We work closely with the East Central Illinois Area Agency on Aging. There are a lot of resources out there that can be helpful. And I should have said that in answer to the previous question as well. If you don't have a support network, there are many resources that are available to support you.
And we're about out of time. So I think, this presentation has been really great. We love when we have an opportunity. There's so much great research happening on campus, and we love when we have an opportunity to showcase really interesting and impactful things that our faculty members are doing. And so we've gotten quite a few questions just about your research and your process and the type of work you're doing in general. So I think kind of to wrap us up, Pamela wanted to know kind of, are you collaborating with the medical school at all? Do you work with healthcare providers? And specifically, she asked, do you talk to them at all about like recognizing ageism and how to combat that in their medical practice?
It's a great question. We're just getting started working with the medical school as they're becoming more established with their students. I think that's a really great opportunity for us to educate medical students about what is an older adult, and what are their capabilities. I think a lot of people have very limited and very negative stereotypes, and that's part of what we're trying to do, even just engaging older adults with my class. So I'm teaching a class this semester on human-robot interaction, and we had a session where we brought older adults to interact with the students in the class. And the students were, one word at the end was, that was so inspiring. They learned so much. So we just have to bring the generations together. That's also part of being an age-friendly university that I mentioned, having the opportunities for our students to engage with older adults and learn more than they might normally learn in a classroom.
Well, thank you again. Thanks for taking all those rapid fire questions at the end. I was trying to get through as many of them as possible. Thanks to all of our participants for joining this evening and for dropping your comments in the chat and your questions. It sounds like people have really enjoyed the session and have learned a lot. As a reminder, we will send out that post-event email that has information, some of these web links and resources that Professor Rogers has mentioned, and then the recording will be available on our website and on the Alumni Link website. So thanks again to Professor Rogers and all of our attendees, and I hope everyone has a great evening.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.